Let's stop pretending. Let's stop sugarcoating. Let's stop acting like this stuff doesn't happen or like it's taboo to talk about women and desire in a real, unfiltered way, because it happens all the time. And the silence around it, that's what's doing the most damage. So we're going there today. We're talking about something that's complicated, personal, a little messy, and definitely not something you bring up at brunch with your in-laws. But we're doing it anyway, because we need to. We're talking about when a woman wants sex, not a relationship, not a ring, not a where is this going, text chain, just sex, and not just sex, secret sex. The kind that lives in the shadows on purpose, the kind nobody else is supposed to know about. And I'll tell you right now, if your gut response is, women don't do that, or that's rare, then you've been paying attention to the wrong stories. Because this isn't rare, it's just rarely talked about, and I'm not here to judge it. I'm not here to label it as good or bad. I'm here to name it, because when we don't name what we experience, we bury it. And when we bury it, it starts to rot. So let me be real. There are times when a woman, maybe she's married, maybe she's single, maybe she's powerful, maybe she's hurting, maybe she's just curious, craves a kind of connection that's physical, immediate, and unapologetically hers. And she doesn't want it known, not because she's ashamed, but because it's hers, because in that moment, the privacy of the act is part of the power of it. Secret sex isn't always about deception. Sometimes it's about freedom. Sometimes it's about taking back control in a world that's constantly trying to define how women are allowed to want and when and why. Here's what nobody tells you. Desire doesn't always come with a script. It doesn't always come with a future. It doesn't always come with a timeline or a relationship status or a heart-eyed emoji. Sometimes it shows up quietly. Sometimes it comes loud. Sometimes it creeps in after a hard week or a big win or a major heartbreak. Sometimes it just wants to feel alive again. And when a woman feels like her body is hers again, not someone else's, not a project to fix, not something to manage or perform with, she might act on it in ways that surprise even her. That doesn't make her broken. It makes her honest. So how can you tell when that's what's really going on? How do you know when a woman is not looking for romance or promises, but something private, something secret, something physical? First of all, let's get this straight. There are no formulas. There is no checklist that replaces communication. This isn't about decoding anyone. This is about recognizing patterns of behavior that are real, but often misunderstood. It's about awareness, not assumption. It's about clarity, not control. You ever notice someone who flirts with purpose, not just out of habit, but with presence, with energy, with eye contact that's a little too strong to be casual? It's intentional, it's controlled. She's sparking the chemistry, but she's also holding the boundaries. She's not asking you to chase her. She's testing your awareness. That's not playing games. That's her asserting agency. She knows what she's doing. She's lighting the match, but she's also deciding if the flame is worth feeding. She's showing you that she's in charge of what happens next, and then there's the privacy thing. It's not just about avoiding attention. It's about setting the stage. You notice she prefers late night texts, not morning check-ins. She's strategic about where you meet. She's not eager to be seen. She's not posting selfies with you. She's not asking for your number in front of friends. She's compartmentalizing, and not because she's ashamed, but because she's setting a boundary. She's choosing what stays separate. It might be that she has a complicated situation. It might be that she wants to keep her image clean. Or it might just be that this part of her life doesn't belong to anyone else. That's not hiding. That's protecting. And then, of course, there's how she uses her body, not just how she dresses or how she walks. I'm talking about energy, proximity, how she touches your arm in conversation, how long she holds a hug, how often she finds excuses to be physically close. She's signaling openness but not asking for a label. And if you try to talk about feelings, she might dodge the question. She might redirect. That's not fear. That's intentional emotional distance. That's someone saying, I want this, but not everything else that usually comes with it. That kind of clarity is rare. And when it's done right, it's respectful. It's honest. It's two adults being intentional. But listen to me carefully. None of this means you have the right to push. None of this means you get to assume anything. Just because someone is expressing interest or chemistry or even desire doesn't mean you are entitled to anything. Ever, you still need consent. You still need communication. And if you're not sure, ask. Always ask. The most attractive thing in the world is a person who can handle direct communication. Someone who doesn't need to guess or play detective. Someone who says, "This is what I want. What about you?" That kind of clarity is magnetic. It's rare, it's powerful. So if you're seeing these signs in someone, recognize it, respect it. Don't try to romanticize it into something it's not, and don't shame her for it. Not every connection is meant to become a relationship. Not every spark is meant to last. Sometimes it's just meant to wake you up, to remind you that you're alive, that you can still feel, and sometimes for some women, that's enough. There's no shame in that. There's no brokenness in that. There's just truth, and it's time we stopped pretending women don't want sex for sex's sake, that they don't crave the thrill, the power, the pleasure, or the privacy of it. Because they do, just like men, sometimes more. So let's talk about it, let's name it, let's stop shaming it, and let's get real. Because life is too short for lies, especially the ones we tell ourselves. When a woman is being intentionally flirtatious without showing any real interest in emotional connection, it's not accidental, it's not random, it's not confusion, it's calculated, conscious, and often incredibly controlled. There's a deliberate nature to the way she engages. You feel it in her body language, in her tone, in the energy she brings into the room. It's not just polite small talk or surface-level interaction. It's something more. It's charged, it's suggestive, but not sloppy. She's aware of exactly how much she's giving and how much she's keeping to herself, and that distinction, that's the key. That's what separates everyday friendliness from strategic flirtation that's grounded in desire but detached from any emotional pursuit. She may initiate conversations, maintain strong eye contact, playfully tease, or laugh a little too long at something only mildly funny. These things aren't random, they're precise cues, not because she's trying to manipulate or mislead anyone, but because she's expressing a form of attraction that's rooted in her physical interest, not in emotional investment. She's drawing a line that says, "I'm here for the spark, the excitement, the connection," but not for vulnerability or long talks about feelings. She's not miscommunicating, she's setting the terms. She knows what she's doing, and she's choosing to keep it in the realm of chemistry rather than connection. A lot of people misinterpret this kind of interaction. They assume that flirtation always leads to emotional availability, or that if someone is giving off attraction, they must be open to something deeper. That's simply not true. In some cases, the flirtation is a standalone event. It serves a specific purpose. Maybe it's an outlet, maybe it's a reclaiming of power, maybe it's just fun, but what it's not is an invitation for anything beyond what she's showing in that moment, and she'll often reinforce that by steering conversations away from depth. Ask her about her past, her heart, her fears, her dreams. She'll pivot. She'll change the subject, or give you just enough to keep things interesting without actually opening the door. That's not a wall built out of fear. That's a boundary built out of clarity. The intentional flirtation often lives in contrast with her emotional neutrality. It creates a dynamic that's hard to read if you're not paying attention, but once you see the pattern, it's clear. She lights the match, but never lets the fire spread. She creates the tension, but keeps it in check. And it's not about being manipulative, it's about being in control of what she wants and what she doesn't. That kind of control can be misunderstood by someone who's expecting romance to follow chemistry. But for her, the flirtation asterisk is asterisk the experience. It's not the lead up to anything else. It's not a door to something more. It's the destination. This behavior doesn't come from confusion. It comes from awareness. A woman who flirts intentionally without inviting emotion knows exactly what kind of energy she's creating. She's aware of the impact of her presence, her smile, her attention. And she uses it in a focused way. Maybe it's just for one night. Maybe it's only when she wants to feel that surge of adrenaline, that reminder of power and possibility. Maybe it's a ritual of confidence, a private little rebellion against the roles she's expected to play the rest of the time. Whatever the reason, it's purposeful. And if you're on the receiving end of that energy, the biggest mistake you can make is assuming there's more behind it than what's being offered on the surface. She's not hiding feelings. She's not waiting for you to unlock some deeper layer. If she wanted to share that part of herself, she would. If she wanted emotional intimacy, she'd allow space for it. But when all the signals stay at the surface, when everything lives in tone, touch, timing, and tension, without crossing into the realm of vulnerability, you have your answer. The flirtation is intentional. The emotion is contained, and that's exactly how she wants it. When a woman is hyper, aware of privacy and timing in the way she interacts, especially in a context that involves physical attraction, it's often not about coincidence or shyness. It's about control. It's about maintaining a separation between what is experienced privately and what is exposed publicly. There's an intentional strategy in how she engages, where she engages, and most importantly, when asterisk. These aren't random decisions. They are signs of a deliberate choice to protect the experience from external visibility, commentary, or consequence. When a woman wants something that exists purely between her and another person, she often creates specific rules around access. These rules usually show up as late night texts instead of daytime conversations, invitations to meet at places that are quiet, low traffic, or far from her normal social circle, and a general preference for discretion over display. She's not trying to be cold. She's setting the terms for what this is and what it's not asterisk. There's a rhythm to these patterns that you can feel if you pay attention. She doesn't reach out during the day when the world is watching. She doesn't want to be tagged in posts or seen together in a place where friends might ask questions. She might even be warm and engaged in private and then distant in public, not because her feelings change, but because her boundaries shift based on context. She's managing risk. Maybe it's about preserving her image, protecting her relationship status, or keeping certain parts of her life untouched by this particular dynamic. Whatever the motivation, she's compartmentalizing, and that compartmentalization is not accidental. It is a key part of how she wants this interaction to function. She draws invisible lines between her public self and her private self, and she doesn't allow those lines to blur. It's important to understand that this hyper-awareness isn't always coming from shame. It's often coming from clarity. There are women who understand what they want and simply don't feel the need to share it with the world. In fact, sometimes the secrecy makes it more desirable. Sometimes, the absence of eyes and opinions gives the experience more room to exist on its own terms. When a woman decides to keep something private, she isn't necessarily hiding. She might just be preserving the thing's integrity by not letting it get diluted by outside influence. She knows what attention can do. She knows what questions can do. She knows how fast something simple and physical can get twisted into something dramatic and complicated once other people get involved. So instead of opening it up to public space, she keeps it in a closed container. She chooses places where no one will recognize her. She communicates at times when nobody else is likely to be paying attention. She may even ask for no photos, no digital traces, no evidence that anything ever happened. And while that can feel confusing to someone who's reading it through the lens of conventional dating behavior, it's actually very straightforward. It means she values the privacy of the act more than any form of external validation. She's not looking for public acknowledgement, she's looking for control. This is a woman who has decided to engage on her terms only, and one of those terms is invisibility. She's not being flaky, she's being precise. She's not disappearing out of disrespect. She's managing the space between desire and exposure. That space is something she's intentionally curating, because it's where she feels safest or most empowered. And the way she controls timing is part of that. Timing is everything when it comes to secrecy. She doesn't want a good morning text. She wants a "you up" at 11:47 p.m. She doesn't want to bump into you at the grocery store. She wants to meet when the streets are quiet and the world is sleeping. These choices are not mistakes. They are boundaries. They are the structure around an experience that is meant to be temporary, specific, or emotionally detached. She doesn't need to explain them. She just enforces them. Sometimes with silence, sometimes with scheduling, sometimes with the kinds of interactions that start late and end quickly. Not rushed, not careless, but clearly confined to the moment and nothing more. There's a sharp distinction between secrecy and dishonesty, and she understands that difference. Secrecy can be a form of protection, a way to keep something pure, untangled, or uncomplicated, a way to experience pleasure or connection without all the noise that usually comes with it. When a woman is steering every part of the dynamic into private corners, into controlled timing, into moments that leave off the grid, she is not unsure. She is not lost. She is intentional. She is setting a rule. What happens here stays here, not because it's wrong, but because it's hers. When a woman is physically open but emotionally elusive, it creates a specific kind of energy that's both captivating and confusing to the person on the receiving end. She might lean in when you talk, maintain eye contact just a moment too long, touch your arm lightly when she laughs, or find subtle ways to be close to you in space. These gestures aren't accidental. They're charged with intent. Her body is communicating interest, desire, and comfort in your presence. But when it comes to her words, her feelings, or anything deeper than the moment you're in, she pulls back. Not with rudeness or defensiveness, but with a kind of quiet precision that signals she's here for one thing and not the rest. She keeps the temperature warm, but the emotional air sealed tight, never inviting in the conversations that open doors to vulnerability. There's often a mistaken assumption that physical openness implies emotional availability. But for many women, especially those who are operating with clear boundaries and intentional control, this simply isn't true. A woman can want touch, closeness, connection in the physical realm, while maintaining firm emotional distance. This doesn't make her cold or calculating. It makes her clear. She understands what she's seeking and what she's not. She doesn't want to be asked about her past relationships. She doesn't want to process feelings late at night. She's not interested in "what are we" conversations. She's tuned in to what her body wants, and she's confident enough to act on that without confusing it with emotional commitment. That confidence is part of what makes her so compelling. She doesn't use physical closeness to trap someone emotionally. She uses it to satisfy a real, honest desire. She might initiate physical contact. She might create opportunities for closeness. She might respond eagerly when the vibe turns intimate. But if the moment starts to stretch into anything that requires sharing parts of herself beyond the surface, her story, her needs, her fears, she shifts. She changes the subject, makes a joke, checks her phone, redirects. This isn't avoidance born out of fear. It's a boundary born out of intention. She's keeping the experience contained within the physical, because that's what she's chosen it to be. This kind of dynamic often confuses people who are used to linking physical and emotional intimacy together. But for this woman, the two are separate, not because she's disconnected or incapable of feeling, but because she's chosen not to invest emotionally in this specific situation. That decision might come from experience. It might come from pain. It might come from a point in her life where she wants to feel something real in her body without the pressure of what it means. For her, this is clarity. She doesn't need to explain it. She doesn't need to label it. She just needs the other person to respect it. You might notice how in conversation, she's fully present until it gets personal. You ask her where she sees herself in 5 years, and she shrugs. You try to talk about family, relationships, anything that opens emotional doors, and she steers it elsewhere. She's not uncomfortable talking. She's uncomfortable with depth in this context. It's not that she can't go there, it's that she's choosing not to. Because she's built a wall between her physical self and her emotional self, and not everyone gets access to both. Her touch might be warm. Her energy might feel close, but her story, her feelings, her emotional world. That's on lockdown. The physical openness is not a tease. It's not a trick. It's not a lure into something deeper. It's the whole offer. And if it's misread as an invitation to something more, that's where confusion begins. She's not leaving breadcrumbs for emotional pursuit. She's not playing hard to get. She's being fully honest in action while remaining reserved in emotion. And for her, that's not a contradiction. It's a balance. A way to meet her own needs without giving away parts of herself that she's not interested in sharing. Her boundaries might show up in small ways. She never stays the night. She doesn't linger in long conversations afterward. She might compliment your body, but never talk about your heart. She's kind, respectful, maybe even nurturing, but she doesn't reach for more than the moment requires. That doesn't mean she's using anyone. It means she knows what the moment is and what it isn't. The emotional distance is not a gap waiting to be filled. It's a clearly drawn line. This kind of woman often faces judgment, usually from people who expect physical intimacy to come with emotional vulnerability. But she's not interested in playing by that rulebook. She's not suppressing anything. She's selecting. She's choosing who gets what from her, and when, and under what circumstances. Her body is not a gateway to her soul unless she decides it is. She can be warm, engaged, affectionate, and still hold her emotional space with unwavering clarity.